Hello everyone. Today we will see a very important topic of this self-knowledge course. Today we will give some important explanations about the family and the attachments. In this topic we are going to reflect on the conflicts that the misconceptions we have about the family can cause in the development of our inner work. And we will also reflect on the stagnation and conflicts that all the attachments, or emotional dependence, that we generate around people and things, and that we misinterpret as love, can generate. The first thing we must understand is that we all have three families. The first kind of family is related to the outside world, where we find our physical body and our personality. This is the physical family. There we find our father, mother, brothers, partner, children, uncles, grandparents, etc. The second family is the psychological family, related to the soul, or mind, or energy. This part of the soul is what we are going to call our internal world. That psychological family is made up of our entire ego, our different negative ways of being. 97% of our essence is trapped there. The third family is what we can call our real family. This is the one related to the spirit or consciousness. It is the part that we are going to call the inner world of our internal world. This family is made up of the 3% of free consciousness that we all have, which is our spirit. To this we will add all the essences that we will rescue from the psychological prison with the work of psychological death. Since each of our psychological elements has a real and true part that is trapped inside them. Now let's take a closer look at each of these families. Let's analyze the physical family. We know that without a doubt we all need a physical body to be able to exist and carry out the work of our being. And we know that we, human beings, are defenseless at birth, and that is why we must have a mother to take care of us, until we can defend for ourselves. There we began to see the need and the importance of having a physical family. But we also know that, due to the law of return, we all have the right to return in 108 physical human bodies. This implies that we must die and be born again 108 times for each cycle. Therefore, throughout our lives, we will have 108 mothers and 108 fathers. If we stop for a moment to reflect on this, and if we begin to investigate our past lives in the astral world and become aware of the reality of this, we will see that in every existence we have lived until now, we have had fathers, mothers, partners, children, brothers, etc. Analyzing this, we can then ask ourselves, which of the 108 mothers we have had is the real one? Which of the 108 dads we have had is the real one? Which of all the thousands of brothers we have had are the real ones? This is a very important point to reflect on. The truth is that the people of our physical family are linked to each other by genetic ties from past existences, and with them we usually have certain karmic commitments, certain debts, let's call it that. For this reason, it is very common for us to return in the seed of our descendants. So, we must understand that our parents are brothers who have collaborated with us, giving us this physical body as payment for another existence, in which we gave them the opportunity to come to this physical manifestation, by giving them a physical body. Likewise, we will have children with whom we will pay for the physical bodies received. Another vitally important aspect of the physical family, and perhaps the most important of all, is our partner. We know that for the reproduction of the species it is necessary to find a partner. But the most important thing is that the creation of the existential bodies of the being will be done through sex, and for this we must have a partner. So, the partner is very important, since it is a brother or sister who is collaborating with us to achieve this great work of self-realization, and we, in turn, are collaborating with them to achieve that goal. Likewise, our children are also brothers to whom we are helping by giving them the opportunity to have a physical existence, so that they also have the opportunity to do their work of self-realization. And we are helping them by providing them with care, education, shelter, and protection, until they can fend for themselves and build their own homes. But it happens that we usually call brothers and sisters only to the people born from the same mother that us, while we see people on the street as strangers, because they were not born in our house. But we don't understand that everyone is our brothers, that our home is not limited to what is within the walls of our house, since the planet Earth is our home. And all the inhabitants of the planet are sparks that emanated from the sacred absolute sun, and we have come to this planet with the same purpose, to draw wisdom from the experience of duality. Therefore, our current home is the planet, and our family is all the inhabitants of the planet. Therefore, that love that we feel for our children, parents, and brothers, we must extend to all of humanity. That is, we must expand our capacity to love, so that, just as we always try to help those who are part of our physical family, we also seek to help all of humanity. And, above all, help them so that they have the opportunity to awaken their consciousnesses and achieve the objective of their existence. But the attachment that we create around the people who make up our physical family doesn't allow us to see and understand that all human beings are brothers and sisters, and that there is no other bond or title. Let's now analyze the psychological family. The internal family is made up of elements called eyes, or psychological defects. They are all that multiplicity of different ways of being that reside within us. We have eyes or selves of all models. We could synthesize them into the 7 causal selves: sloth, greed, lust, pride, anger, gluttony and envy. But each of these is in itself a legion of details or eyes. As Virgil, the Mantuan poet, said, even if we had a palate of steel and 1,000 tongues, we could not list them completely. And it happens that each of these has its own percentage of trapped essence, which is what gives them life. And these are formed and have grown by the totality of the energy that they have absorbed throughout their existence. This happens every time we let the defect manifest through any of our energy centers, since they feed on our energy. The sum of all of them is our psychological family or internal world. So, the biggest problem that the members of this family represent is that they have trapped our consciousness, and that they manage, and misuse, the different energies of the centers of our human machine. Hence the importance of constantly practicing self-observation to discover them in our mind, emotion, actions, words, sex, and in all the tensions, sensations, and desires that they constantly make us feel. And once discovered and understood, eliminate them through a petition to our Divine Mother, so that we can release the consciousness and the energy trapped within them. This internal family was formed by the misuse of creative sexual energy. The first time we fell into fornication, or expulsion of our sexual energy out of our body through orgasm and ejaculation, which was the true original sin, there we created the 7 causal selves. And every time we fornicate, we create more and more defects. And with all the untransformed impressions that we have during the day, due to lack of wakefulness and concentration, we give them our energies, and they have multiplied enormously. Over time, we have created a legion of defects within us. These defects are all our vices, desires, errors, sufferings, pleasures, reactions, etc. And these are dearer to us than our own physical children and our physical family. And we can verify this by seeing how we more easily sacrifice the physical or psychological integrity of our family members, rather than deny the desires of our defects. We see how by satisfying a vice, people are capable of leaving their children without support. We see how by defending their pride, someone is capable of losing their partner. Or how we prefer to mistreat or humiliate a child rather than deny our anger or our tyranny. We prefer to feed our violent or bad-tempered defects, even if it hurts others. Then we see how not only we not deny ourselves the desires of our defects, but we defend them, justify them, and feed them as we please. Hence the attachment we have for them. And you are going to see and verify this when you advance in the work of psychological death. There are psychological defects to which we are so attached that deciding to eliminate them will lead to a painful process of emotional and mental crises. However, we must understand that, only by eliminating our defects, will we be able to free and integrate that third type of family that we will analyze now. Let's now analyze what the real family is. We call it the real family because it has always existed and always will exist. It is our spirit, our inner being, the inner world of our internal world, and it is made up of many parts. All of them are unfoldings of our Father. God as Father represents our wisdom. God as Mother is our essence, our raw material, our creative energy of the Holy Spirit, our love. God as Son symbolizes justice, the psychological trainer, the giver of light or wisdom, and of fire or love. These three primary forces unfold within us into three others, which are Atman, who is our intimate, the ineffable, our particular warrior. Buddhi, who is our divine soul, the Valkyrie. Manas, the Christic will, the Word, our human soul. But there are also many other parts of our being, like the intimate Christ, the 12 apostles, the 24 elderly bakers, etc. And as we work on the three factors and the revolution of consciousness advances, the integration of our being begins. We work on eliminating our psychological defects, and all those sparks that are currently trapped in the ego are released and integrated to achieve sacred individuality. In the end, all of them will become a unit. Well, now that we have explained the three types of family, let's look at the attachments issue. What are we attached to? Why do we believe that being attached is being in love? What are our attachments based on? Let's reflect on all this. What is attachment? Attachment is an emotional bond that extends over time. We can see it in that emotional bond that we create as children towards certain favorite toys. So, we didn't want anyone else to play with them, and we cried if we lost them. Likewise, we can see it in that emotional bond that we have been creating towards everyone and everything that gave us pleasure, and everything that we call mine. We create an attachment to our mother, our father, the house, the money, the partner, the children, the comforts, etc., etc., etc. And we believe that what we feel towards those people, or towards things, is love. However, it is not love, because attachment always leads us to suffering and true love never leads us to suffering, because it is a virtue of consciousness. However, when someone has attachments, they suffer. Attachment is related to suffering. If we are attached to something, then we suffer when we lose it. And since we have that constant inner emptiness, due to having lost true love within us by having disconnected from our own being, we are unhappy. And due to this we always seek to cling, or become attached to people and material things, and thus create that false happiness that will only last as long as the relationship with that person lasts, or as long as we possess that thing. We become attached to all the comforts and our loved ones, and this prevents us from seeing the reality of things. These attachments prevent us from seeing how inconsequential and transitory all physical things are. It is very important that we begin to reflect on this issue, and that we can observe how all attachments have their origin in fear. We become attached to all things, and then we live in hell due to the torture of fear of losing them. We are afraid of losing our material possessions, afraid of losing our partner, afraid that the people we love will die. And this is because we don't understand, and don't accept, the reality of life and death, and how fleeting existence is. And we don't understand the reality that death, as such, doesn't exist. A father or mother is attached to their child, and even though they have grown up, they continue to interfere in their life, and they want to manipulate them or force them to study what they believe is correct, to marry who they think is best, etc. We become attached to a partner, and then we live suffering from the fear of losing them, of them being unfaithful, etc. And because of these kinds of attachments, all kinds of unhealthy and toxic relationships are created. When one manages to understand that every attachment has a fear behind it, and that it is a psychological defect who generates that fear of losing that, because it generates us pleasure, comfort, or security. Then we begin to reflect to understand what the fear behind that attachment is, and what is the defect behind that fear. And if we eliminate it with psychological death, we free ourselves from that fear, and from that attachment, and that is how we rescue the true capacity to love, which is based on respect and freedom. For example, I discover that I am attached to my mother, because just imagining her dying makes me suffer. I reflect, who is it that suffers there? And I discover that, if she dies, then I will no longer have anyone to help me financially, and there, I discover that it is my greedy self that causes that attachment. Or I discover that I am going to suffer, because I will no longer have someone to clean me and cook for me, then I discover that it is my lazy self that causes that attachment. Or I discover that I am going to suffer, because I will feel lonely. And so, when one reflects on these fears, one discovers that it is our ego that suffer at the idea of losing our partner, our house, our car, our children, or any of the thousands of things to which we are attached. We also discover with amazement that behind what we call love there is an egoic interest and a fear. That we don't really love anyone, and that, to truly love, all those conditionings and all that attachment must die. And this issue of attachment is terrible because it ends up delaying, and even paralyzing, the possibility of self-realization, if we do not understand it perfectly. Attachment to our ego prevents us from moving forward towards the liberation and awakening of our consciousness. The attachment to our comforts, and all the fears that we feel about losing our social or economic position, can be a terrible obstacle when we seek to begin to generate a permanent center of gravity around our inner work. And the attachments that we generate towards our family members, and all the fears that sustain these attachments, often prevent us from doing any sacrificial work for humanity, at the same time as making it impossible for us to internally pass the initiatory tests. When family, or whatever we are attached to, weigh more than the work on the work of our being, there is no chance that any test can be passed. There are 4 tests that are put to us incessantly when we are in this work. They are the tests of air, fire, water and earth. No one will pass the air tests if they have attachments. Every time that in the astral we are thrown into an abyss, and we scream, that scream is an unequivocal symptom of an attachment. Attachment to the physical body, attachment to this, attachment to that, to a child, to a thing, etc. And the masters make us see it internally by launching us from above. Then we feel the terror of losing and we scream. And so, we failed the air tests. But also because of the attachments to our pride, to our comforts, to our lust, and to our ego in general, we do not pass the tests of poverty, which are the earth tests. Nor we pass the adaptation tests, which are the water tests. Nor we pass the tests of anger and lust, which are those of fire. Nor can we pass any of the small details with which they test us daily. And so, we stagnate indefinitely in the inner work. You see a man and a woman get together, and the first thing they look for is a roof over their heads. Then they start filling it with furniture, and then they put down roots there. Then come children, properties, assets, and thousands of other nonsenses. And then we cling to all the comforts, we suffer at the thought of losing them, we worry about what our life would be like without them. We feel ourselves in the things and in people, we have become accustomed to them. We don't want to feel uncomfortable. We feel that these things have cost us a lot of work, we think that being without them would be like going backwards. We worry about what others will say if we lose our things, what others will think about us, etc. And we tie ourselves to all these things. We feel like owners of the children, the wife, the husband, and this prevents us from seeing the reality of things. How fleeting all things and circumstances in life are. It is necessary to understand the conflict that exists with the family and attachments, to have it very clear, very well understood, so as not to get stuck in the inner work. If we were aware that every time we buy one more decoration for the house we divide and fragment our love, and that when we seek self-realization, we are integrating love. If we come to understand this, in order for us to learn not to get attached to things, we would not need to tear down the house or get rid of things, but rather understand why we want them the way we want them. If we manage to do it, also with people, with the family, we will not need to get rid of the family. If we understand this issue, we can do the work of self-realization in one life, and we can move forward when we have to make decisions. We must know that the family is a duty. But we have to know how far the duties and rights go within the family, in order to consciously advance the integration of the real family and the disintegration of the psychological family. It is necessary to work with meditation and psychological death to find the roots of our attachments, of all those emotional bonds that we have been forming with people, things, beliefs, and above all with our own ego. This, so that we can achieve true liberation and the awakening of consciousness, and so that we can know what love really is. And well, this was today's conference. Remember to leave any questions you may have on the topic in the comments. As always, I will invite you to our next conference, where we will talk about transcendental meditation, and how to reach the state of meditation known as samadhi, or illuminating void, through the koan technique. Thank you very much to all. Until next time.